After I arrived in Ireland, so watch what, this is going to be our illustration. Watch what happens to him. Back home, where his dad was a deacon in the church and his grandpa was a priest, Patrick could have cared less about God. He could have cared less. He had nothing to do with God. He did not know God. Now he's a slave in Ireland. No one around him is a Christian. And here's what happens to him. I tended sheep every day. I prayed frequently during the day. Why? Because he's a slave and everyone around him is mistreating him. His life has become horrible. More and more, the love of God increased and my sense of awe before God. Faith grew and my spirit was moved. So that in one day, I would pray up to 100 times and at night, maybe even the same. He's waking up in the middle of the night. Why? Because he's a shepherd. He's guarding the sheep and there's all kinds of dangers. I even remained in the woods and on the mountain. I would rise before dawn to pray in the snow and ice and rain. I never felt the worse for it, and I never felt lazy. As I realize now, the Spirit was burning in me at that time. Was it better for him to stay home or to be enslaved and go through all this suffering? The Spirit was burning in Patrick. Crazy. His life, we can't go through his whole life. He was taken as a slave. Eventually, he's told by God in a vision. He has this vision that says, there's a ship ready for you. He travels as a runaway slave 200 miles on foot across Ireland, finds a ship, and they tell him they won't take him. He gives up, he walks away, he starts praying, and all of a sudden, for no apparent reason, they say, all right, come on board. He makes it to France. He eventually gets back to his family in Britain. Imagine what his family felt like when he got back from all these crazy, he's been a slave for 6 years and then in danger in France for maybe 4 more years. He's finally back home. What do you think his mom said? You are never leaving ever again. You're going to stay right here forever. And that very night he has a dream, and in that dream, God tells him he needs to go back to Ireland. He needs to go back to the place where he was kept as a slave, because now he's ready to preach the gospel to them. Even the church leaders thought he was out of his mind. He spent 20 years preparing, and then he went back into Ireland, and he baptized over a pretty long ministry with lots of help from others. He wasn't alone. He baptized thousands of people in Ireland, including the High King of Ireland. It's an amazing story. God used that time to prepare him. I want to read just one more thing from Patrick, and then we'll move into our text for today. You might think, was he some, very different? Was his faith like ours? I mean, he looks very different from us, right? He had very different culture. You probably don't wear a robe like that or cut your hair like that. It's really not in style these days. Sort of an early medieval Celtic tonsure. That's what that's called. So that the idea was the top of your head was open to God. That was the idea. It was symbolic. But look at what Patrick believed. Here's just one more paragraph from his autobiography. There is no other God, nor will there ever be, nor was there ever, except God the Father. He is the one who was not begotten, the one without a beginning, the one from whom all beginnings come, the one who holds all things in being. This is our teaching. Does this sound like the Bible to you? You could probably find 4 different verses that he connects to right in that first section. And his Son, Jesus Christ, whom we testify has always been, since before the beginning of this age, with the Father in the Spirit. He was begotten. What verse is he quoting there? Jesus was begotten. What's the most famous verse in the Bible? John 3:16. The only begotten Son of the Father. He was begotten in an indescribable way before every beginning. Everything we can see and everything beyond our sight was made through him. He became a human being. And having overcome death, was welcomed to the heavens to the Father. The Father gave him all power over every being, both heavenly and earthly, and beneath the earth. Let every tongue confess that Jesus Christ, in whom we believe and whom we await to come back to us in the near future, is Lord and God. He is judge of the living and the dead, and he rewards every person according to their deeds. He has generously poured out on us the Holy Spirit, the gift and promise of immortality, who makes believers and those who listen to be children of God and co-heirs with Christ. What book of the Bible is he quoting there? Romans. This is the one we acknowledge and adore. One God in a trinity of the sacred name. That's the gospel according to St. Patrick. And it's stunning, right? He wrote that in the 400s. It's exactly what we teach today. It's exactly what we teach.